before you were ever aware of your purpose. Your destiny had already been sealed by the Most High. This divine sealing is not something the human mind can easily grasp, because it doesn't operate within the limitations of the physical world. It is spiritual, eternal, and untouchable. When God places His mark on someone, that mark cannot be removed by man, demon, or circumstance. That mark is a signal to the spirit realm and both to angels and to demons that you have been chosen, that you are not for ordinary use, and that your life serves a higher purpose that transcends understanding. This sealing is the reason why, despite every attack, despite every loss, despite every dark valley you've walked through, you're still standing, because no weapon formed against you could override what was written over your life before you were even born. This divine sealing is not just a blessing, it is a declaration. It declares to the kingdom of darkness that you are off limits, that no curse, no spiritual contract, no ritual, no demonic hierarchy has the authority to interfere with your purpose. The forces of hell may rage against you, but they cannot break through the seal God has placed upon your soul. It is like a divine force field, invisible to the human eye but impossible for darkness to ignore. When demons see you, they don't just see flesh and bone, they see the radiance of God's hand over your life. They see the light you carry, and they know they are forbidden to touch you. They may try to surround you, to discourage you, to send people to betray you, but they cannot enter your spiritual space. They cannot consume you. You are divinely protected, even in the heat of spiritual warfare. Many chosen ones don't realize they've been sealed until they look back and wonder how they survived what was meant to destroy them. They went through things others couldn't have handled, yet they came out wiser, stronger, and spiritually sharper. That's because God's sealing is not passive, it actively guards, instructs, and elevates the one it covers. You might have lost friends, you might have lost family, you might have faced rejection or even deep emotional and spiritual pain, but your soul remained intact. You may have stumbled, but you never collapsed. You may have been wounded, but you were never conquered. That's because the seal over you is divine. It does not weaken, it does not fade, it does not break under pressure. The spiritual realm operates under laws that are higher than any earthly system. When a soul is marked by God, that soul becomes legally untouchable to the enemy. The demonic cannot override heaven's command. They can observe, they can tempt, they can plot, but they cannot cross the boundary God has set. This is why, even when you were in dark places, even when you made poor choices, even when you strayed from your path, the enemy still couldn't take you out. God's seal over your life was still active, still functioning, still declaring your protection and preservation. What others called luck was actually divine covering. What others couldn't explain about your resilience was really spiritual armor guarding you from the inside out. And this seal isn't just for protection, it's also for assignment. Chosen ones aren't just sealed so they can survive, they're sealed so they can fulfill a mission. The protection exists because your purpose is too great to be tampered with. The Most High doesn't waste His power. If He sealed you, it's because you carry something inside you that this world needs. It might be a voice that breaks generational chains. It might be a gift that heals others. It might be wisdom that dismantles deception. Whatever it is, it threatens the kingdom of darkness so severely that your life had to be covered in advance. There's too much at stake. The enemy knows this. That's why you've been targeted all your life, not because you're weak, but because you're powerful. Not because you're cursed, but because you're chosen. People may not understand your isolation, your battles, or your pain. They may even judge your journey. But the truth is, many of them wouldn't have survived one chapter of your story. What they don't see is that your life has always had a spiritual weight to it. You were set apart before you even knew what that meant. You never fit in, not because something was wrong with you, but because something divine was right with you. The seal on your life meant you couldn't walk where others walked. You couldn't do what others did. You couldn't ignore the call, even when you tried. And every time you drifted too far, something always pulled you back. That was the seal doing its job of redirecting you, correcting you, preserving you. And this divine sealing doesn't always make life easier. In fact, it often invites intense spiritual warfare. But even in the fight, the enemy still has to operate with restrictions. There are things that were planned against you that never reached you. There were traps you were meant to fall into that collapsed before you got there. There were moments you should have lost your mind, but you didn't. There were nights you should have died, but you woke up. There were battles you should have lost, but somehow you won. These weren't coincidences, they were the result of divine sealing, the signature of heaven that said, "This one belongs to me." You may not have understood why certain doors never opened, why certain people walked away, why certain things never worked out, but when you're sealed, rejection becomes protection, delay becomes preparation, setbacks become setups. God doesn't just protect what He chooses, He almost refines, purifies, and transforms it. That's why your path has been so intense. That's why the attacks seemed endless. Because the more valuable the vessel, the more pressure is required to shape it. And the seal guarantees that no matter what that shaping looks like, you will not be broken beyond repair. Your presence in certain environments shifts the atmosphere because of the seal. Darkness becomes uncomfortable. Spirits become agitated. People either gravitate to you or flee from you without understanding why. It's because the anointing you carry is undeniable. You don't have to say a word, your energy speaks. Your light reveals hidden motives. Your silence convicts. Your walk, even when imperfect, still reflects the presence of the one who marked you. And that makes you a walking threat to any system, spirit, or person operating in darkness. This sealing also comes with spiritual authority. You might not always feel powerful, but your prayers shake things in the unseen. Your declarations echo in realms you can't see. You have the ability to stand in gaps others can't stand in, to fight battles others don't see, and to intercede in ways that cause ripple effects in the spirit. And the enemy hates that. He can't stop the seal, so he tries to distract you from realizing it. He wants you to forget who you are. He wants you to believe you're unworthy, unloved, unprotected. But even your doubts don't void your destiny. Even your lowest moments don't erase your anointing. Because you were sealed not based on your perfection, but on God's purpose. The more you become aware of your divine sealing, the more clarity you'll gain about why things happened the way they did. The betrayals, the spiritual attacks, the psychology, all of it makes sense when you understand that you are not ordinary, that you're a threat from the moment you entered this world, that God had to place a shield over your life before you even had language for what you were called to do. This awareness doesn't make you arrogant, it makes you vigilant. It makes you walk differently, speak differently, think differently, because you realize that your life isn't random, your survival wasn't accidental, and your protection isn't optional, it's divine. Before you ever came to understand your identity as one of the chosen ones, the enemy already knew. The realm of darkness has always recognized the ones marked by heaven, often before those individuals even recognize themselves. The reason your childhood may have been full of strange hardships, rejection, isolation, or unexplainable spiritual attacks is because the enemy could see the light on you from the very beginning. That glow in the spirit, that divine fingerprint on your soul, is not something you could hide, no matter how unaware or broken you were at the time. From birth, the demonic realm watched you, not because you were weak or vulnerable, but because you were chosen, set apart, destined to shake the very ground it stands on, and the enemy made it a priority to target you early, before you could discover your true identity, before you could unlock the authority given to you by God. What you went through wasn't accidental. Many of the challenges you faced were spiritual strategies to prevent you from stepping into your calling. The enemy's tactic is simple: if he can't destroy you, he'll try to delay you, distract you, or deceive you. He'll send counterfeit relationships to drain you. He'll orchestrate betrayals to scar you. He'll whisper lies into your mind to keep you doubting yourself, to keep you silent, to keep you asleep. The goal was never just about causing pain, it was about keeping you from awakening to your power. Because once a chosen one becomes aware of who they are, they become unstoppable. Once they realize that they carry divine authority, that their voice pierces darkness, that their presence disrupts evil, the enemy's grip begins to weaken. That's why the attacks often increased when you were on the verge of revelation, on the edge of breakthrough. That's why spiritual warfare seemed to come out of nowhere, because hell could sense that you were getting closer to understanding your anointing. The enemy recognizes spiritual potential more than people do. He sees the blueprint of your soul, the heavenly scroll written over your life, the divine fire in your spirit. That's why some people, influenced by darkness, were drawn to hurt you. They didn't know why they were jealous, why they resented you, why they tried to break you. But it wasn't really aim up, it was the spirit working through them, trying to dim your light before it fully ignited. Demonic forces have always feared chosen vessels. You may have been overlooked by man, but you were never invisible in the spirit realm. In fact, your name was known in hell before you knew who you were. That's why certain rooms rejected you. You were too light-filled for them to contain. That's why you couldn't fit into worldly systems. The seal on you wouldn't let you blend in. The enemy recognized your power before you did, and he did everything in his arsenal to keep you in the dark. Some of the strangest experiences you went through weren't just unfortunate circumstances, they were spiritual indicators of your calling. You were never allowed to get too comfortable in sin. You were never able to follow the crowd blindly. You always felt like you were being watched, guided, corrected, pulled. That wasn't paranoia, it was divine preservation. But while God was preserving you, the enemy was plotting. He hoped that by overwhelming you early with trauma, confusion, or isolation, he could cause you to self-destruct. But what he didn't expect was that every wound would deepen your wisdom, every heartbreak would sharpen your discernment, every attack would strengthen your spirit. What was sent to kill you only awakened the warrior within you. That's because the enemy may recognize your power, but he can't override God's purpose. When you walk into a room, spirits shift. People respond to your presence without understanding why. Some are drawn to you, Others are repelled. It's not about your physical appearance here, it's about your spiritual resonance. Your soul carries weight in the unseen. Your mere existence disrupts darkness, and the enemy fears that. He fears your awakening. He fears your confidence. He fears your alignment with God, because once you begin to walk in the full awareness of your identity, you become a weapon of light. You become a living contradiction to everything the enemy tried to convince you of. You become evidence that God's power is greater than any generational curse, any trauma, any lie ever spoken over you. This is why your mind has been a battlefield. The enemy couldn't access your soul, so he attacked your thoughts. He whispered doubt, fed you fear, made you question your worth. He hoped to keep you in cycles of insecurity and confusion, because the longer you doubted yourself, the longer he could delay your destiny. But deep inside, there was always a knowing, a small flicker of awareness that you were different, that you were meant for more, that you didn't belong to the systems and patterns of this world. That knowing was the voice of God still speaking under the noise, still calling you home to yourself, still affirming what the enemy tried to bury. Spiritual opposition doesn't come to ordinary people. If you've been heavily attacked, it's because there's something heavy on your life, something powerful, something eternal. The enemy does not waste resources. He assigns his forces strategically. And when you were chosen by God, the enemy took note. He crafted attacks specific to your weaknesses, to your story, to your calling. But no matter what he tried, he couldn't remove the seal. He couldn't change your identity. He couldn't block your anointing. That's why you're still here, still seeking, still rising, still hungry for truth. Because deep down, the enemy's recognition of your power wasn't enough to extinguish it only proved how real and threatening your light truly is. This battle between light and darkness isn't new, and your role in it has been long established. You were born into this war with a purpose, and though you may not have chosen this path, it chose you. You were designed for it, equipped for it, prepared through every storm. The enemy recognized that early, which is why he tried to break you early. But every plan formed against you was allowed only to a limit, because while the enemy recognized your power, it was God who defined it. And that definition remains unshaken. Regardless of what you've been through, the enemy's recognition only confirms what heaven already decreed, that you are called, that you are chosen, that you are unstoppable when you walk in truth. The enemy saw your light, and that's why he fought so hard to dim it. But your resilience, your continued rise, your unbreakable spirit is evidence that his plan failed before it began. Chosen ones are not ordinary individuals. They are souls born with the spiritual mission embedded deep within their core, one that cannot be erased, delayed, or replaced. Long before they took their first breath, the heavens had already written their purpose into existence. These individuals are not selected at random. They are chosen because they have the inner strength, resilience, and spiritual capacity to fulfill divine assignments that others would crumble under. The reason hell fears them is not simply because they are good people or spiritual beings, but because their very existence disrupts the agenda of darkness. A chosen one is a divine threat to demonic systems, falsehoods, and generational curses. Their mission is not small, it is monumental, and it carries weight not just in the physical realm, but in the unseen spiritual realm where battles are fought and destinies are enforced. From birth, chosen ones carry a different kind of energy. This energy often attracts attention, both good and bad. People may not be able to articulate it, but they sense something about chosen that doesn't align with the ordinary. Children like this often experience rejection, jealousy, and misunderstanding even in their earliest years, while other children might be accepted or celebrated. The chosen child is often met with envy or spiritual resistance. This isn't because they're flawed, it's because the enemy already sees what they carry, that divine light inside them, even when untrained or unrecognized, threatens the structures the enemy has spent years building. Demons do not wait for a chosen one to grow up, discover their calling, and walk in power. They attack early, trying to crush their identity before it's fully known. This mission hell fears is not always grand in a worldly sense. It could be the assignment to break a generational curse of addiction, to be the first in the bloodline to truly walk with God, or to speak truth in environments where deception has ruled for decades. It could be the assignment to raise children in truth, to build platforms that empower others, or to carry prophetic vision that disrupts corrupted religious structures. Whatever the assignment is, it matters deeply. The chosen one does not just exist for personal growth, they exist for kingdom impact. That's why their lives are often filled with extreme highs and lows. The weight of their calling attracts both divine intervention and demonic resistance. Spiritual warfare becomes a constant theme because the forces of hell understand that if this one individual rises into full awareness of who they are and what they carry, entire regions, families, or spiritual territories will be transformed. Even before they are spiritually mature, chosen ones walk with a certain authority. They may not understand why their presence agitates certain people, or why they are often singled out for attacks, but it's because their spirit carries evidence of divine appointment. People under demonic influence are often triggered by their energy, not because of anything the chosen one says or does, but because darkness recognizes light without introduction. These spiritual assignments carry so much weight that the enemy will use every tactic possible to confuse the chosen one about their purpose. He will try to bury them under layers of trauma, sin, betrayal, or addiction. He will make them question their worth, isolate them, and attempt to distort their vision of themselves, because if he can get them to doubt their calling, he can delay the fulfillment of their mission. But what hell doesn't anticipate is the resilience that comes with being truly chosen. That resilience is not natural, it's supernatural. It's forged in the fire of affliction, built through seasons of silence, and strengthened in hidden places where no one sees but God. Chosen ones often go through wilderness seasons, where they feel forgotten, misunderstood, or spiritually dry. But even in those places, their mission is being activated. The silence trains their ears to hear God. The isolation refines their discernment. The rejection teaches them to rely on divine affirmation instead of human validation. The mission begins long before the stage, long before the recognition. It starts in private, where God shapes the vessel for public impact. Because of their assignment, chosen ones are held to a different standard. They can't compromise the way others can. They can't indulge in certain environments or relationships. Their spirit will not allow them to rest in places where their anointing is being suffocated. Even if they try to blend in, something inside them will cry out for more. They are spiritually sensitive, often feeling things others ignore. Their mission is fueled by insight, pain, and obedience. And because of that, the road is not easy. It's filled with spiritual tests, betrayals, moments of brokenness, and divine redirection, but all of it is necessary for the weight of their calling. The enemy's fear is not rooted in the chosen one's past or even their current state. It's rooted in their future. He knows that once they step fully into alignment with God's will, they become unstoppable. Their words carry deliverance, their prayers break chains, their presence shift